Well, we've got a number of people here. We have our panelists here. So how about we get started? I'm going to ask Alex Schaffer. He's the president of Meadows Bank to get us kicked off, if you would.
Oh, thanks a lot, Gary. And yes, I'm Alex Schaffer. I'm the regional president here in Phoenix for Meadows Bank. Firstly, want to welcome everybody to the kickoff webinar in the Growth Leaders Essential Series that Gary and Joel so graciously are bringing to everybody. I think we can all agree that today's leaders want practical approaches to maintain growth, as well as a community to help them along the way. The series focuses on opportunities for leaders like yourselves to do just that: connect, learn, and grow. Being an active participant in our community to help and support businesses is integral for all of us at Meadows Bank, which is why we felt so important to support this series, along with our friends at Capital Insight Partners. Meadows Bank, we're a community bank focused on partnering with business owners to help them achieve their levels of success that they aspire for. We aspire to be a creative approach and deliver unique solutions to those business clients of ours. That fits so well with what my friends Gary from Gary Covert Consulting and Joel Strom from Chief Value Officers will speak to today. So with that being said, welcome, and we hope you take away many extraordinary takeaways from today's information. I'll let Gary take it from here. Thank you.
Excellent. Thank you, Alex. Appreciate that. So the way we're going to do things this morning is as collaboratively as we can. We actually have a high degree of ability through formats like this to be highly collaborative and highly interactive. So we'll take that opportunity to do so. So in terms of what we're doing this morning, between me and Joel, it'd be very conversational. I have some points I'm going to go through. Joel has an immense amount of experience with this. He can talk to innovation and organizational effectiveness with so much certainty and fluency and experience. It's very valuable. So we're going to do some of this through kind of a conversational approach as well. I've got some slides we'll go through. As far as questions, you'd certainly have the ability to chat. There's two windows you have. You have more chance of getting your question answered if you use the button that says Q&A. So I can look through the chat window. I'll look more through that periodically. But if you have a distinct question, I really encourage you to use the chat feature. I mean, not the chat feature, the Q&A feature. Much more likely for me to see that, and then we can get your question addressed. Don't wait towards the end. Go ahead and put them in. That'll be just fine. Before we kick off, Joel, is there anything you'd like to say?
No, I'm just excited to get our first program going, and look forward to having our participants in many of our programs as we go through the rest of the year. Excellent.
So what I'm going to do is I'm going to share my slides that I've got prepared to help with our discussion this morning. Can everyone see those? Can you see those on your side, Alex?
Yes,
Joel?
Yes.
Okay. So like Alex was saying, this is the first in a series of webinars that we have planned. We're calling this the Growth Leader Essentials series. And there's nothing really any more important these days than having the ability to keep growing. And we do that through being creative. We do that through being innovative. And certainly being innovative cures an awful lot of ills these days. People are a little tired out. They're trying to take care of kids while they're working. They're trying to be a teacher and dealing with all sorts of things. So they're feeling a little stressed out. They're feeling disconnected. But we're under such pressure today, we really need to have what I call innovation muscles and applied creativity to be as effective as we can. So we're very pleased to offer some of the insights here. We're in partnership with Capital Insight Partners and Meadows Bank, as Alex talked about earlier. So we're going to be talking about innovation, and like some other topics, including strategy and even talent, big topics can be impacted negatively by small thinking. And I'll give you some concrete examples. But number one, my exhortation to you is let's think bigger. And there's 5 dimensions that I see leaders, and I talk to them all over the country in terms of all different industries. Could be technology, construction, engineering, defense, restaurants, whatever. Many of them are plagued by this, and it has to do with the who, what, when, how, and why. And we can think small in all of these dimensions. So the first dimension that I see is thinking small about who should be innovating. And if we're small thinkers, if we're thinking too small, we might be thinking, hey, it's just the tech people, it's just people from head office, it's just committees, innovation committees. And some people are realizing, and maybe you've experienced this yourself, an innovation committee is often where good ideas will go to die. And it's small thinking to only rely on those things. Does that make those things bad things? Certainly not. We certainly need R&D centers. We certainly need R&D labs. We certainly have a lot of good thinking, or should have, in our head office. But if we really want to think bigger about innovations, we want to be more inclusive. And by inclusive means deeper within our organizations and wider within our organizations. Wider meaning the HR function, the finance function, your operations function, your sales, marketing, all those, knowing that, hey, I have a role to play in innovation. We can also get small thinking as an organization, as a culture, thinking, oh, who am I to be innovating? That's for the Apples of the world. That's for all the tech companies of the world that have such incredibly high valuations on the stock market these days. But that's for them. That's not for me. That's small thinking. We need to jettison that. There's so many different areas that we can. We'll talk about a few that we can. But really, number one, in terms of thinking bigger about innovation, is we want to embrace the who. So that's one area we can do there. And as we go through these, Joel, jump in. I'd like your perspectives if you have any stories to share, or perspectives or other insights. So
I think when the who is, you're really talking about getting everybody in the organization into that mindset, into that culture of it's okay to do things differently. It's okay to make changes, big changes if it warrants it. But everybody, I like how you've listed everybody from HR to finance to ops. Everybody has to be involved in this process.
Yeah, I had an experience. I was working with the senior leadership team. And at the end of the day, we're working through the processes of innovation, the words of innovation, and got some good ideas on the board. And I went through and I asked, what were some of the takeaways? And the senior HR leaders, her takeaway was, I have a much bigger role to play than I thought I had in innovation. She was a little hesitant. It's like, well, that's an ops issue, or that's a quality issue. That's not for me. But she really had a lot of great perspectives. And once we kind of broke that pattern of thinking, it allowed her to contribute much more proactively to the senior leadership team.
Yeah, there's so many companies that think that innovation just belongs in the product development or product area as opposed to the entire organization.
Yeah, excellent observation. And we're going to talk about the what. When we're talking about innovation, what are we talking about? And again, small thinking, big thinking. Small thinking, just products. Hey, I just need to work on my products. Or, and I've highlighted this to some leaders, it's this balance between, it's all about new inventions, or it's just about optimizations, like really big thinking or very small thinking. And both of those dimensions, if we're limiting that, that's kind of small thinking. So think a little bit bigger. Think about the customer experience, or think about how we're selling, because certainly how we're buying dramatically different if we haven't changed how we're selling or thought about it. Probably a little bit behind the curve. Even innovation in terms of the brand that we take, the position that we take, and any of our processes. So we need to think a lot bigger around these. So I'll give an example. A big local company here in town, Republic Services, they're a waste removal service. They come around and empty your garbage cans. But if they were a small thinker, they wouldn't be able to do some other big things. One of the big things that they do I found fascinating is that they will capture I guess it's probably methane, the gases that come out of a landfill. They put a plant on site that will concentrate that and turn it into a fuel, and then they run their fleet of trucks on that. Now tell me that that's not innovative. That's big thinking, and that's not just, has to do with their product, but a bigger part. Carvana, another local company here in town, happy to see all their growth. They didn't invent selling cars, and they certainly didn't go and try to figure out a way to dramatically improve how we do the in-store experience. They took a hard, sharp right turn and said, let's do this digitally. And they were one of the first people out there, and really did it with some style. Even in their, they had some great innovation, I believe, around their marketing. They had those great big machines that looked like a big gumball machine, and really it's like, oh, that's Carvana. So really innovative and fun and out of the box thinking. So it's not just about products, not just about inventions, and it's certainly not just about tweaking what we already know.
It's a way, it provides a really great opportunity to truly differentiate your company. You don't have to be, like you mentioned, the Apples of the world. You can do things different enough that it really differentiates you. But you have to think that way. You have to innovate to do that.
Yeah. So thinking bigger about, so it talked about the who, now talked about the what. Let's talk about the when. Small thinking can be about, when we're threatened, when we're not busy, when we're pushed or surprised or, at risk. That's small thinking. Big thinking, if you have it really as part of your culture, it's what we do on a regular basis. I was just earlier this morning on a webinar, and they're talking about Agile and the Agile culture. And that's usually a word around software, but it's about this continuous improvement, continuously driving and going towards, you can use a nomenclature you like, but some sort of hill that you're going to sprint to in the next 1 month or 2 months. You just set that as an intention and focus the organization on it, or a senior leadership, focus on it and really drive, so that it's constant and so that it's proactive. And I think some great examples of that, think about like Intel. What if Intel took their foot off the pedal for a quarter? What would happen to them? They could lose years. What if Intel took a break and said, hey, we're innovative enough. When they catch up, we'll go do something. They would be today's BlackBerry, right? So I think we really need to make it part of our culture, and it doesn't have to be done well. It doesn't have to be a big onerous thing, but something that we can do as a senior leadership team or leaders within our teams, so that we continue to do it and stay ahead of the curve versus getting passed up and say, oh my gosh, somebody zoomed past me on this particular area. They're making my customers a lot happier. They got a new product that we don't have, where you're kind of playing catch up. That's actually more exhausting than being proactive about things.
But you as leadership team, you have to continue to cultivate that. And you have to continue to encourage people to give ideas, to make suggestions, to improve things. And then you have to be, as a part of the leadership team, you have to be willing to accept that and try it. And not just say, no, that's not going to work.
Yes. Yeah. Which is a great segue again to this next one, which is how are we going to do it? So I think we can think small about innovation. If we're thinking about very formal processes, stage gate kind of stuff, if we're overly bureaucratic, there's an argument to be made for discipline and structure, but for something that, like innovation, we need to be pretty flexible. And many of these systems are built to screen out. It's like a rigid funnel. It's like, well, if it gets past this filter, it'll go. And if it gets past that filter, it's a go. And that sounds great, but what often happens is that you screen out ideas that would otherwise, with a little attention, may actually turn out to be great ideas. And you just get a watered down version, maybe just a very tepid or incremental change. So thinking a little bit bigger, thinking about more empowered, instead of just having it delegated to formal processes and a few bureaucrats, people that are guarding the gates. A bigger way to think about it is be more empowered. Let people within their scope make decisions about the nature and quality of the work that they do. And a key component of that is having skilled leaders that know how to have good innovation conversations. And at the end of the day, be able to screen ideas in, because it's easy to screen out, it's easy to say no. And it's conversely, it's also easy to say yes, hey, go for it, even though it's a half-baked idea. What takes some skill, what takes some nuance, but adds a lot more value is screening ideas in. That means taking a half-baked idea and helping people work through it and make it even better. One example occurred to me. I don't know much about it, but this company PillPack. So if you do prescription medications on a regular basis, you may be familiar with them. They're a subsidiary of Amazon. And what they do is if you get your prescriptions from them, instead of one big bottle of pills, they give you out they package them by the day that you need to take them. So it's very clear for caregivers, very clear for people taking multiple medications, what you need to take and when and what dosage, and it's dramatically more effective. I'll put money down that it probably wasn't a great idea at the very beginning. It was probably a half-baked idea. There are probably plenty of people that said, oh, there's too many hurdles, you can't do it. But as they worked through it, they got rid of some of the rougher parts of the idea and were able to make it work. So probably a half-baked idea, but now it's an idea that's worth billions and billions.
Actually, that's part of the, I think that's part of the story. It's that it was that different and innovative that now it's part of Amazon. Mm-hmm. And you can't beat that.
Yeah.
But Amazon is known for that kind of thinking. They encourage ideas to come up to get approved, and they're open to try things. If they don't work out, they don't work out.
And that's where I think
encouraged to do that.
Yeah, I think a lot of organizations, it's funny, we're talking the other day about anchors. Where are the anchors in your organization? Anchors to innovation. And sometimes they can be at the top, they're just not thinking big. Sometimes it's at the bottom. You don't have people that feel it's safe to contribute, but sometimes you have your anchors in the middle. And those anchors, you got the middle managers that just don't know how to deal with ideas, or know that their bosses are seriously interested in ideas, and they don't let those ideas come up.
That's right.
They put the kibosh on them.
And your comments about culture is where you've got to really work to break that anchor, I guess, is down.
Yeah. And then the last area you can think small is in terms of why we're innovating in the first place. And I think small thinking is that it's just about survival, that it's just about being competitive. And certainly when you're talking about innovation, and I do this too, you talk about Blockbuster, you talk about FTD Florist, gone the way. You talk about Sears and things like that and say, hey, you don't want to be that. Well, that's okay, but that's still kind of small thinking. What you really want to think about, if you want to think bigger about innovation, is that it's a methodology, it's a mindset, it's part of culture so that you can thrive. And it's a way that you can really engage with your people. And if you really think about it, it's a way for you to fully express and honor your vision, your mission, and the values of your organization. So if you're a leader, think about what those three things are. Maybe you've got them on your wall, or maybe you've got them on your intranet, but take a look at them. And what if we were to really transform our culture and get dramatically more innovative? And to what extent would we be more in alignment with our vision, with our mission, and our values? You're probably, if you really take a more innovative mindset, you're much more likely to be fulfilling all those and reach your potential. So if you have great cultures like that, big thinkers, you get people that are attracted to work and enjoy working at places like Google or GoDaddy. You don't attract people, you know, the very best talent to companies that are just in survival mode. They just don't tolerate it. You know, you get some people that will be willing to work there, but you get the very best people that, you know, feel like they can make a difference, they feel like they can contribute, and they feel that they're part of the mission.
And if you are the leader, the only way you can really get your organization going in that direction is making it a core part of the business. When I was recently as CEO of a company, we established four letters: C, B, P, and I. And the CBPI was customer, brand, partnering, and innovation. And we never had a meeting that we didn't talk about this. We never had there wasn't a wall in the building that didn't have it on it. People knew what that meant. And we had events and things that we did that tied to it. But it was something that innovation, everybody knew that innovation in that company meant it was to innovate things in everything you did or everything we made. So it came out of just the product areas and the manufacturing areas into here's what we live on. We innovate.
And that's huge. You know, people want to be part of growth. They like to be on a winning team. And, you know, that kind of mindset, it's free.
Yes, right.
You know, people, it's like, how do I engage people? Or, you know, what are some of the things I can do to recruit more people? Well, be a winner, you know,
there you go.
Endeavor to be a winner, endeavor to be that place that wants to that values people and listens to them and gives them an opportunity to reach their potential. That's right. A differentiator. Okay. So those are the five areas, and I'll leave you with a couple questions here. So think bigger. So if you're thinking about the who, you might ask yourself some what ifs. I'll go through some. What if we dramatically increased the inclusion in our innovation efforts? In terms of what? What if we took a broader view of what constitutes innovation? In terms of when, what if we were more proactive and more disciplined, even like 15 or 20%, probably dramatically different outcomes. How? What if leaders at every level of the organization were empowered and adept at leading innovation? Not just a few, but broadly. What about in terms of the why? What if we were to fully honor our mission, vision, and values through our innovation efforts? What more could we achieve as an organization? So a couple questions to get you thinking there. So way to kind of assess yourself, I'd encourage you to do this as a reflection later. But draw yourself a little diagram here. Just draw 3 lines and go around the horn, label them who, what, when, how, why, and maybe some other way that you might be thinking small that I didn't capture here. But are you thinking small in all of these dimensions? Are you thinking kind of in a moderate level in all of these dimensions? Or are you thinking it smaller in some areas and bigger in others? You know, we're really disciplined about the when, but maybe we could probably do a little bit more work about the who. The bigger you can make this picture, the bigger the impact you can make on innovation. So as a summary, this is the key thing that I want you to take away. And I've got a list of other things, actions that you can take, but think bigger. Often we're limiting ourselves and our innovation efforts because we're thinking too small, and we're thinking too small in these areas. Let's see, I am going to, any questions? I'm going to pause and see if we have any questions in the chat area or the questions. I don't see any.
Gary, let me kick off a question for you.
Yeah, please do.
You
Make
talk
it
about
easy.
the the getting everyone in the organization to promote and work through innovation. I think there's a lot of people in organizations, starts at the top and goes down through middle management as well, that don't really know how to make that happen with their team.
Mhm.
Are there some ways that, well, I guess they can call you, but are there ways that they can be working with their people to really build that kind of feeling up, or
Yeah.
the knowledge of how it's easy to go in and say, we're going to be innovative, but
Yep.
then how do you do it?
Yeah, you need to have some skills around it, but they're not difficult. The first skill I would say would be able to describe what innovation is, because it gets very fuzzy. I would say be able to tell your organization or your team, hey, I want you to be more innovative. And I say, legitimately, what does that mean? So be able to define what innovation is. I'll give you one if you don't have one.
I think that's a great idea.
Yeah, I'll give you one if you don't have one. I'd suggest applied creativity. 2 words, both of them easy to identify. I was writing a blog a couple weeks ago, and I called it ABC, Applied Business Creativity. So we all have creativity. Most of us work in the context of business, and we just need to endeavor to find out how to apply it. So if a leader is saying, I want us to be more innovative, ABC, I'm in the market for ideas that we're going to help, that I can apply to help us improve our business. Simple. People can wrap their heads around that. It's like, okay, that means I don't have to be an engineer? Nope. That means I can use my own creativity? Yep. So get in there. The other is have a process. And the process doesn't have to be very complex, but at least be able to say, we're going to go through these maybe 5 steps, and we're going to get an idea. We're going to help develop that idea. We are going to do some risk analysis and kick the tires on that idea. We're going to make a plan for that idea, and then we're going to execute. Very simple. You can figure out your own, but at least have one, because what I've seen is that once people get started, they fixate on the ideation.
Yeah.
They say, well, we just need to get some ideas, and they get excited, and they put a lot of ideas on a whiteboard, and the idea kind of goes everywhere. And there's a couple disciplines that they need to have, but or they'll just run through the entire process and just say, hey, there's an idea, let's execute. Well, time out. There's a couple things. Unless you're a solo entrepreneur, that might work. But in most organizations, you need to kind of work through the law of unintended consequences and check in and see what other resources, and make it more of a team event.
Hey, Gary, this is Alex. There's 2 questions in the Q&A.
Oh, great. Thank you. What percentage of a leader's time should be spent on innovation? I have an opinion. Do you have one, Joel?
Yeah, it depends on how crazy you want to drive the rest of the team. Well, there's a lot of entrepreneurs out there who do nothing more than continually come up with new ideas. But I think the key is that it's not that you're innovating 100% of the time. It's that you're encouraging 100% of the time, that you're continually getting your team thinking about, can we do it better? But every organization, people don't like change typically. There's some of us that have change as their middle name, and we drive people crazy doing that. But I think it's not a matter of how much time the leader is spending innovating. It's that they should spend 100% of their time encouraging the innovation in their team and creating that culture. So I don't know, Gary, what do you think?
Yeah, there's a time and a place. I would say at the higher we go up in an organization, the more we should be spending on it. So the 4 basic blocks of a leader are being an expert in your function. Next up is being a great developer of people. Next up after that is being able to come up with new ideas to raise the bar. And last on top of that is how to develop strategy or affect strategy, thinking strategically. And a junior leader is probably going to be mostly in functional expertise and people development. And maybe touch on a little innovation. Probably won't get involved in strategy all that much, but want to contribute to it, but doesn't formulate it. But as you go up, and it doesn't take long, you're gonna, as a leader, you should be spending more and more of your time. Your functional expertise, you know, if you were a great sales leader, if you're a great finance person, if you were a great engineer, less and less important, and more important is on the strategy and innovation part. So, but I liked your point is about encouraging others. So a large percent of your energy should be spent on encouraging others to innovate and making sure that they have the tools to do it. One other thought I'd leave with you is on that subject is that it's up to leaders to set the strategy, but if you really want to lift with your legs and not hurt your back, you know, use your big muscles. And those muscles are lower in your organization. Lift with your legs. So top-down strategy, bottom-up innovation. You're going to have some pockets. You know, there's not many experts in AI out there. So allow them to do that and focus on that. But the rest of the organization can contribute broadly to innovation.
Exactly. That's where it has to come from.
Let's see. There's another question here. There are companies that are known as engineering companies. This has been developed over many years. How would you start the journey to open up innovation to the other areas of the company? Yeah. That's if I'm taking your question correctly. There's a lot of companies, and I've seen them, that they're either operations led or engineering led, and yeah, it takes a little bit. So I think that starts from the leader of that predominant group, and it also starts for the senior leadership team. You need to start to look at this as a collaborative sport, innovation, and help them see that, you know, you could probably do a lot more together than you can apart. You know, the silos focus energy in certain areas, but if you add on synergistically, I'm just thinking about engineering plus operations or engineering plus marketing. I mean, imagine what you can do if they're really innovating together. Joel, I think you have some experience in this realm. I probably should have let you speak.
No, that was good. Everything you said was perfect, right on. But you know, one of the things that I found, I struggled with the same thing. The company I was running was an engineering-based manufacturing company, technology-driven, and what we really had to do was make it okay to fail. And that was really a different mindset that the teams had to get through. It was like, what do you mean it's okay to fail? Well, if you're not failing, if you read about innovation and processes that people have put in place, if you're not failing big enough, they say you're not innovating enough. So in fact, you and I have talked about things like this, Gary. But getting people to understand that it's okay to fail. We're a good place to fail in, because if you fail enough times, you're going to succeed a couple of times and have some really great ideas and great concepts out there. I think we have time. Let me share a quick thing that I heard from somebody who worked at Amazon. My son, who had worked at Amazon for quite a while, we brought him in to talk about how they innovate and what we could kind of steal from that. And one of the things that we tried that was really a neat idea, you could apply to product, you could apply to other things. The Amazon process was that you had to write the press release for what this new concept, idea, product was. It could be anything. It didn't have to be a product. So you had to write the press release, and then you had to write the frequently asked questions. And so it kind of gets you past it made the person who was coming up with this idea think through it and go through what's going to happen about this and be able to think it out. And if they could come back with a good press release and a good frequently asked questions, then Amazon approved it. Well, then we started to approve these kind of things. And it was, we had people coming to us who were not adapted writing these kind of, to writing. And so they would get somebody to help them, and they would come up with this together and present it. And it really seemed to work pretty well. But it was also it was okay if you turned it in and we accepted it and it failed. The key was that it was okay to fail. As long as you thought it through, as long as you try to come up with a good idea and there was a basis to the idea, it was okay to fail.
Yeah, I love that idea because it gets people out of their head. Sometimes they'll do one or two things I've observed. They'll say, "Oh, I got it. I know exactly what we need to do," and they don't write it down.
Right.
They said, "No, it's so obvious, why we're doing it, what we're going to do, when we're going to do it, who needs to involve. It's so obvious. I'm just wasting time writing it down." Usually wrong. The other is they go to the other extreme and they come back with a 40-page deck of all the steps and the Gantt charts and who's going to do what. And they spent, two solid man weeks working on this thing in isolation. And then they start to talk to it, and then they get irritated or their feelings hurt because now it's seen the light of day. And then people start to, say their baby is ugly. So it's tough.
The person that asked the question about the engineering companies, I've seen engineering companies where the engineers are not innovating, where this is the way we do it. And, I think what that says is that it has to go through the entire organization. The culture has to be there, not just, it has to go all the way to engineering. We can't assume that engineering is going to be developing new ideas and being innovative.
Yeah, there's another great engineering company that didn't do so well, and it's called Kodak, and is full of brilliant chemical engineers. What they could have accomplished with a couple digital marketers,
right?
Or they had more, leverage. Maybe they existed, but they just weren't. They're drowned out. And you see that a lot with companies. They might have. And they may even describe themselves like this, is we have a core business. Our core business is X. And they have the biggest budgets. They get the most revenue. They've got, all that sort of stuff. And they get an outsized influence, and it can be a damper on real innovation. So we need to not just stick with what we know, but we need to have that culture that challenges ourselves and have the courage to say, I'm in the market for new ways to win, not old ways or incremental ways. Right. I'm in the market for new ways to win, and I'm willing to reconstruct the company and myself to do it.
I agree.
Excellent. So I think got those two questions. I don't see anything else in chat. Okay.
Well, you covered it so well that.
What's that?
I said you covered it so well, there's no questions.
Yeah, excellent. So I am going to go back. I've got a couple points. So those are overall what I want people to really take away is that idea of, think bigger, challenge yourself, challenge your organization. So here's some other ideas I have for suggested actions to help you in terms of innovation. First one is get organized. Get organized around a sprint. Sprints, that vocabulary is often used for software. Software designers do sprints all the time, but my suggestion to you or your senior leadership team or you and your team is organize yourself around concentrated activity and say, okay, this is a specific area we need to work on. We need to be dramatically more effective in terms of our user experience. We need to be dramatically more impactful in terms of how we sell. We need to be dramatically more responsive in how we pursue leads, things like that. But figure out what it is very specifically, not just, hey, we want to be more innovative around here. Pick something specific, organize yourself around it, and give yourself a bookend and say, hey, in 2 months, we're going to have concrete ideas and actionable plans. You know, the execution might take a couple more months afterwards, but organize yourself around an focused activity to get working on things. I would say review or renew your strategy, and when you do that, mine it. When you do strategy and you do it correctly, and it's not just an activity about exchanging spreadsheets about how much incremental growth you're going to have, but if you're really doing strategy and you do it well, you're going to come away with 3 or 4 key areas that over the next period of time, 18, 24 months, whatever it is, should dramatically propel your organization. And those are the ideas you should focus on in terms of your innovation. And that, like I said, that might be the user experience, that might be cost of issuing quotations or estimates to your clients or things like that, whatever it is. Thirdly is review your talent gaps. I was talking earlier about Kodak, but look at the people that you need to have in your organization to achieve your strategic goals. You know, I've got Pixar here as an example. So Pixar would not be Pixar if they didn't have a guy named Lasseter. I forget his first name, but he was one of the principal architects of the whole motion animation technology. Pixar could not have become that company without that individual. You couldn't have done it just with more cartoonists from, you know, traditional cartoonists from Disney. So look for your organization. Do we need to be dramatically better at digital? Do we need to be dramatically better at marketing? Get those people in. And so they're going to dramatically move your thinking of who you're going to be and what your opportunities are. Fourthly, get people under the same roof. And that's difficult these days. In a sense, difficult, but we have so many tools to do it. We've got Microsoft Teams. There's other tools out there. I would suggest you get tools that are specific to project management and innovation so that you can move things along and get visibility on them. But you want to get people under the same roof. People, in my experience, people I'm talking to, they don't feel as connected as they would hope to be with others. But get them under the same roof, digital if you have to. Fifth is tie your innovation theme to other activities. So leaders feel a little overwhelmed these days. They're thinking, oh, I need to do team development. I need to work on this whole diversity and inclusion question. I need to be working on remote work. And when you talk to them about innovation, they say, well, oh, that's just one more thing I got to put on my plate, like another food group. It's not. It's the entire food group. So tie your innovation theme. Innovation itself is a muscle to help you do all these other things. This is a coordinating activity, not just another discrete activity. It's like, oh, now we're doing innovation. Nope, it's all together. It's one big pattern movement that you can do together. 6, evaluate for innovation. That means you're looking at your team and saying, hey, as a leader or a mid-level leader, part of your evaluation in terms of your success is a degree to which you are surfacing new ideas, helping your team to surface new ideas, how well you're helping other teammates to execute on new innovative ideas. Have some criteria so that you're helping them to move the bar. It's not just managing, but how are you getting them to really contribute to innovation action? And to be fair, if they don't know how to do it, give them the training. You know, we talked about earlier, give them some training so that they actually know how to do it. Just don't say like, hey, think more strategically. That's very difficult. You know, or say, hey, you need to be more innovative without any training. Give them some training on how to do it. 7th, give people some of the common language and processes. We talked about this a little bit earlier, but help people, and this can go very far. If you have a common language around steps, have common language around definition, and if you have some common definition of what constitutes a good idea, a lot of people will throw around this word, hey, I got a good idea. But what if in advance you had some criteria by which you could evaluate a good idea? That will accelerate you along the path here. 8 is review your incentives. Often in organizations, they have incentives to just do more of the same. Hey, we just need to hit our numbers for this quarter. Well, I'm sorry, in some cases, switching to a new mode of sales that's desperately needed, or a new kind of product mix, maybe a quarter or two might suffer, you know, and if our incentive program is just about on a quarterly basis, or just about sales or existing sales, and doesn't give them that space to fail, you're going to have some issues. 9, stop tolerating inappropriate internal competition. There's enough competition outside. If you see it inside, I was talking earlier about maybe core business or a particular group that's got more sway within the organization, just don't let them fight. As a senior leader, you have to make the relationships and the expectations, make relationships strong, expectations clear. You're just not going to tolerate that. 10, survey your front line. So some of the best ideas are going to come from whatever your front line is, whoever's talking to the customer, whoever's making the product, whoever's closest to where your money gets made or lost. Get in the habit of getting to them and getting them involved in the conversation. 11 is create an innovation pipeline. So that means have things visible. You know, companies are very good at making a 9-box for their talent. And on a 9-box for talent, you're putting people in terms of what their potential is and what their current performance is. That's very clear. You review it on a quarterly basis or an annual basis, and you keep that front of mind so you can see, so we're nurturing the right talent. Do the same thing with your innovation ideas. Some over time may become irrelevant. It's like, oh, that's obsolete now. But some you need to nurture and move along. Or if you're working on the sprint level, it's like we're working on these 3 or 4 now, that gives you seed material to go back to and bring them up. So create an innovation pipeline, put it on your calendar with you and the rest of your team so you can see, are we moving these things along? What ideas have we lost along the way, some momentum, which ones do we need to go back and capture? And then lastly, I'd say, let your innovation go in two different directions. One, if you're client facing, look for ways that you can be the delight of your customer experience. You know, that's a very fertile area. Is it in terms of responsiveness? Is it in terms of speed to getting them answers on a request for product? Or one of my favorite companies, and I've got their shoes on right now, is this company called Allbirds. I love their product. They're great shoes, but the whole experience is great. Their packaging is great. How they communicate with you by email is great. They're just kind of fun. They keep it light, and it just all that makes me feel really good. And they have a great mission too. So there's different ways that don't cost a lot of money that you can create a great customer experience. If you're in the B2B realm, then whatever you're innovating in, let that innovation allow your clients to be world-class innovators. So whatever you're doing, you know, if you're making software that does construction bids, you know, make that super easy, or you know, make your client, you know, if you're like a GC or something, a general contractor, look great when they're making pitches to their owners and things like that. So whatever you're doing as an innovator, make your, if it's B2B, things that you can do that will help your clients look like world-class innovators would be great areas for you to focus on. So those are 12 suggested actions I've got in addition to thinking big. Joel, are there any that particularly caught your eye, or any others that you would
Well,
suggest?
I really like your innovation pipeline concept,
Hmm.
because some of these things, like you said, need to be thrown out of the pipeline or put off for years. But when you've got ideas, the worst, what I found is that if you say you're going to be an innovative company and you want ideas, if you let the ideas die without some explanation or something, people stop innovating. They stop doing it. So having a pipeline that's active and moving, I think is great. And in your number 12, when you talk about your Allbirds or B2B, I think you have to, even as a B2B supplier, you have to think like a B2C supplier. You
Mhm.
have to come up with ideas that, maybe you're not going to package it and tie it together with a pink bow or something, but
Mhm.
you're going to innovate in ways that you still want to delight your customer, whether it's a B2C or a B2B. So it might be a little different delight, but
Mhm.
that's the way I think you have to think about it. So I think all of them are great. I was really excited about 11 and 12.
Yeah, yeah. So, Alex, do you have any comments on any of these? Didn't mean to surprise you immediately. There might be some questions here.
No, I think those are really valuable things, and this certainly has me thinking about how I can do this in my organization. So it's really good. And yes, there appears to be a couple questions.
Yeah, I'm looking here. I jumped in the Q&A. So another question, will this recording be available after today for us to share with leaders? Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah, I'll download this and send out a link to everyone who registered, so you can share that out. Another would be, some innovations require capital. In consideration of this difficult economic climate and all the uncertainty surrounding the recovery, how is Meadows Bank supporting existing and prospective clients with innovations, sitting on the sideline waiting to deploy that required capital? Did you understand that question, Alex, or do that?
Uh, let-
You
let-
want me to repeat it?
yeah, let me just read it again really quick.
Sure.
Yeah, I think innovation is where we all need to be focused right now, given the circumstances, um, and challenging in a very highly regulated industry like banking. Um, but it's really thinking uniquely about the customer's needs, what they communicate, and how we ask the questions to get them to communicate what their real challenges are, not the surface level challenges, not we need money for this, this, and this. What is your strategy, and how can we partner with you to alleviate? And maybe we've had experiences with other businesses that we can lean on, to kind of help answer some questions. And maybe financing isn't the right approach, but maybe it is, and maybe there's a way to kind of get there. I'm seeing definitely a lot of capital sitting on the sideline, sort of waiting for some shoe to drop, whether it's the election coming up, and how do we handle that, and how does the market, I mean, there's market pressures, but then there's also fundamental business pressures too, that these underlying businesses have, and how do we understand what those are so that we can hopefully propose something that makes sense. It's a really difficult question, but the key is understanding what you can potentially offer as a bank or any business, and then what your customer really needs to meet their goals.
Yeah, I would say in my conversations with you and with Christy is that you guys take a very holistic look and really want to understand the business and support them in the ways that you can. Sometimes that's through connection, sometimes that's through direct services and things like that. So so hopefully that answered your question.
Yeah, and I think as I read this again, There's nothing about the current situation that is making us nervous about participating and growing with our clients. There's not this concern so much that it would alleviate our desire to want to continue to grow and become deepened partners with those.
Yeah.
Thanks.
So I'd encourage, that was an anonymous question, so I'd encourage you to reach out to Alex or Christy if you have a specific question, and I'm sure they'd be happy to help you. So I think we went through a couple questions. I just want to maybe wrap up here. I've got contact information. So number one, as a message, stay safe, but stay connected out there and stay growth focused. You can connect with me. This is my email address there, Gary Covert Consulting. Connect with Joel at joel@joelstrom.com. Connect with Alex at the Meadows Bank. Christy, who also works with Alex, and then Steve Nelson, our other partner, and he'll be with us to introduce a future webinar at Capital Insight Partners. You can reach him at that address there. I'd also encourage you to register for future events at garycovert.com/growth-leaders-essentials. We've got a whole array of different webinar opportunities and some in-person events as well. You can see our full calendar there. So Joel, you have any other thoughts you'd like to share?
No, just encourage you, if you thought this was worthwhile, to look ahead to the next one in 3 weeks from now, and encourage other people to or invite other people to do it as well.
Excellent. I'm looking forward to that one. That one, you'll be leading that one, and it's on the role of, is it lessons learned?
It was lessons learned, right?
Excellent. Yeah.
Yeah.
You've got such a wealth of experience. I'm looking forward to hearing that. So
Great.
Thank you, everyone. I appreciate
Thank you.
Everyone being on the line. Thank you, Alex. Thank you, Joel. Thank you to Steve over at Capital Insight Partners. Thank you for all of us joining. Thank you for the great questions. Always appreciate those. Reach out to us. We really do want to make this a community. We're starting out with webinars, but we really want to connect with people. So please do reach out. If you have an interest in a particular subject matter area and we have other like-minded leaders, we'd certainly like to gather those together and have a deeper discussion. This is a big subject. I encourage you to think big about it, but there's some more areas that we can go even deeper and get you the help that you need. All right. Thank you very much. I appreciate everyone. Bye now.